Good morning, everybody. Just got back from a much needed break, and I was reading through the comments a couple days ago, and one of you mentioned that the Super Bowl halftime show was all about the Flushing Meadows, New York Pavilion and Unisphere. And we had talked at length about the World's Fair site for the last month. And of course, there was no way to know what the theme of the halftime show would be. Let's look at some of the images of the miracle hiding in plain sight, predicted on the show before it happened. This is the Flushing Meadows, New York Pavilion and Unisphere, and this is the halftime show opening sequence with the very same images. And you can't stretch this, you can't make it up. It is what it is. And we're going to talk about why this is, where this is headed, and the ramifications of all this during this halftime show decode. Now, where does this gift come from? Of course, it comes from the Holy Spirit. God wants us to expose the enemy. And this is the miracle of prophecy. And what it's supposed to do is jog you awake, or for the people that have seen this and see the miracle, and then awaken to the truth. Not for my glory, but for the glory of the Most High. To him goes all the glory. So we're going to go break down the Super Bowl halftime show and figure out why they put these visual elements inside of the halftime show and what it means for our future. Now, before we get into this, we're going to recap and look at last year's Super Bowl halftime show. Now, this was on the eve of the CV-19. This was right before the world changed forever. There were a few cases here and there, but we had been through this many times before, had we not? With other spamdemics that never reached the intensity of the one we're in now. This was last year's halftime show. That, of course, is Shakira. But the one theme that was prevalent in that show was the actual CV itself in this rainbow colors. Look at this. These are microscopic images of what they are saying is the CV. You'll see it in the stage here as well from these wide angle shots. Here's a wide angle shot here. We covered this last year during the decode that we did. But there was something else. There was this smiley face matrix theme. These emojis, here's one there. And we saw it in the set stage here, rotating around their feet. And we had figured out that what the smiley face meant. And we called this out during our decode of this halftime show. Here is the smiley face again on their sweatshirts. And this ritual was followed by the rest of 2020 being filled with smiley face Apollonic eclipse themes. We figured out that these smiley faces were really the shape of the eclipse that went underneath China. It kicked off this whole thing. The eclipse happened on the very date, December 26th, that they identified the first cases of this in China. So this ritual kicked it all off. And we're going to see something very similar in this year's halftime ritual. Now, let's go back here. Let's make sure we're connected first before we continue on with this. Now, we're not going to actually play clips of the halftime show just because of copyright and stuff. But let's just go through some of this here. Here's the opening. Of course, this is Flushing Meadows, Corona Park. You can look that up for yourself. Yes, it has the same name of everything that we're going through right now. The spamdemic is the actual name of this park in Queens. We talked about the entire history of Queens as it relates to the T-Man, Mr. T himself, the Don. And I'm not going to belabor the details of that at this point because the documentation is there in your face, and I will put links to those videos that we did in the pinned comments. But here it is here, and this was the place in the film Men in Black that aliens came down and lived among us. In fact, they also stated in Men in Black that this was the place where these people settled. This was the first alien disclosure. And there was a place set up near the New York Pavilion and the Unisphere where they had a kind of like a United Nations type of thing going on, where all the aliens would come and go. It was like a port of entry, and they would come and check in, and they were being monitored and all this, right? Creepy stuff. We also had done decodes on the animal sacrifices and mutilations that were happening at this World's Fair site. We just did that one like a couple weeks ago, last week maybe. We did a whole show on the animal mutilations. There was a zoo at Flushing Meadows, and the cages were locked, but animals were missing or mutilated inside the cage, inside locked cages. Now, there was an X-Files episode that was all about those zoo mutilations. And I watched that episode. I didn't see anything that really jumped out at me other than that's what they were getting at, were these World's Fair mutilations. Now, what else is in this scene? We haven't even gotten into this yet. And here we see the lotus flowers. Now, we saw this also at, what was this, at New Year's, at the Needle in Seattle. We saw imagery of these lotus flowers opening. As far as I can tell, this is, of course, Kamala is the lotus. She might be the secret, the backdoor thing that happens to us. And there's the lotus flower. Now, what is the lotus? A lotus is a swamp flower. So out of the swamp comes new beginnings. And we are in the world of tomorrow. This is it. This is Tomorrowland, which of course was the theme of the World's Fair, where we see the imagery here, Unisphere and the New York Pavilion. So, I'll link all the videos that we've done to this point in the pinned comment. And even this Pepsi brand is significant here, because the research for the taste receptors and the flavoring of Pepsi came out of a fetal cell line called HEK294. And these were the adrenal glands of a termination. From what they tell us, the cells aren't actually in the flavoring, but it's bad enough that they were used in the research for the flavoring. And you can look that up yourself. These are facts. Then, let's see here. At 50 seconds into this, you're going to see what looks like the return of Christ. Except it ain't no Jesus. It's the Antichrist, of course. Slowly descends down, just like the aliens that we just told you about that came down at Flushing Meadows. Play a few seconds of this. See how he's dropping down here? So, this confirms what we just said. The arrival at Flushing Meadows. And then at a minute and 14 seconds, this seems to be a chorus of red-eyed demons. And they're all singing, and this is a very church-like, like a satanic church service ensues. And I tried to count how many were in the chorus, but as you can see here, there are like red-eyed demons. And I counted 75, and it just so happens there were 7,500 healthcare workers who got to come to the Super Bowl for free. So maybe this was them. Right in your face, mockery and blasphemy. The administrators of death. Now, here is the set list of what The Weeknd played. And this reads like a laundry list for everything that's happening to us right now. Facial paralysis. Save your tears. I can feel it coming. Head for the hills. The UFO blinding lights. The house of smiley face balloons. You can't make this up. You earned it. Starboy. That would be the fallen stars. Now, I'm not going to go through the lyrics of every single one of these songs, because this is, I mean, look how far the Super Bowl halftime shows have fallen. There actually used to be people with some like a remnant of talent. But this guy was just, he almost reminded me of a person you'd see in a karaoke bar. And maybe that's the appeal. But look at the lyrics of just this one song. Can't feel my face. That's the facial paralysis, right? But at least we can live forever. Stay forever young. Do you see what's going on here? The VC. Now, let's get back into this. 4 minutes and 44 seconds. He performs mask mockery. Now, this reminds me of the plague doctors. Look at all the masks. He walks into this gold lit box room, and you see these his dancers are in these masks. And these masks look a lot like plague masks. They just do. Change the speed here so you guys can get a visual on this as they're dancing around. Now, these guys eventually come out onto the field, and we'll get to that in a minute, because I found some crazy stuff with that as well. But the fact that they're mocking all of us, covered from our entire faces except for our eyes, that means something. Okay? Now, make sure we're connected. We are. Let's get into this. 6 minutes and 55 seconds. An elite ritual wouldn't be complete without a Venetian eyes wide shut mask, right? Look at this. This is his guitarist. He was the only guy on stage really performing with. I don't even know who this guy was, but there he is with his Venetian eyes wide shut mask. Glitter mask, as you can see there. And then it's 7:23. To me, this skyline looks a lot like a cemetery. It's supposed to be the skyline for the city, but to me it looks like a cemetery of souls. Raymond James Stadium. We might take a closer look at that as well. Let's do that now. Ray J, they call it for short. This is it here. Down in Florida. When did this open? Let's take a quick look-see here. Broke ground on October 15th, 96. Opened in 98 on September 20th. We'll dig deeper into that if there's anything else to see with the stadium. But I always like to look at the specs and location and settings of all these places. gives us a snapshot into what they're up to. Now, you look here, you will see some of these words embedded into the background of the stadium, or the skyline here. Here's a good shot of it. You could see that it says certain things. And as far as I could tell, these were like instructions on social distancing. It says alone, touch. This one says hours, and long enough. Maybe after quarantine, right? That's long enough. And then there's one over here that says feel nothing, which is where this is all headed if we allow this to continue. Now, at 10:18 into this, we see him perform blinded. I'm sorry, here's the ghouls, right? And they've got their plague masks on, and they take the field. And it's weird because, to me, this is like a thriller. This reminds me of Thriller, right? Michael Jackson. And here they're dancing on what appears to me to be the killing fields. And they've got this very thriller-like dance. They're all in masks. Hundreds of them. Then at 12 minutes and 30 seconds, he performs blinded by the light. And what you're going to see here is the all-seeing eye on the field as he's performing this. He's standing at the center of the all-seeing eye. Now, see this? He's at the pupil. Here's the outside of the eye, the inside of the eye. This was intentional. It wasn't accidental. He's singing blinded by the light. And every time we'll see this eye. Shows up every single time. Now, we've done videos on what NFL means. Nephilim, Football League, the Giants of old. But here's what saddens me about these decodes and having to do them, is how few people understand what's really going on, that these are rituals. This is why we do a lot of hindsight work. That's why we recapped last year's Super Bowl show, so you can see that everything in their ritual came to fruition in the set design and stage design. And the smiley face, that became a theme throughout the year. Smiley face balloons. Smile now, cry later. And make no mistake, this year's Super Bowl will become the theme of the future of this year for 2021. It will be more of the same. Nothing's really changed in terms of the VCs. Both presidents are administering the bite, administering the venom. A bad Don is no different than a Biden. They're the same. They're Janices. They're pushing forth the same agenda. What I'm concerned about is the unknown about Kamala. Her name meaning lotus flower. She's kind of the unknown at this point. We don't really know what she's going to do. But make no mistake, we'll be all over it when or if it happens. Let's go in the chat for a bit, because that was kind of a short show. We'll be back on here tomorrow with Star Trek and showing you the pre-programming of the VCs as Kirk keeps getting shot in the neck by the doctor. And we'll show you what that means, and he experiences all those side effects. Facial paralysis, numbness. So, good morning, everybody. Did I miss anything on this decode? You guys, I tried to do a thorough walkthrough with it. There were the colors, of course, the red and black. We know what that means. Those are evil colors of, like the harlot, the bride of Satan. But those are kind of the obvious things. We try to go outside the obvious stuff, like the black and white shoes he was wearing and the all-seeing eye. That's kindergarten for this channel. The very fact that they showed the elements that we were already talking about tells you everything you need to know about the agenda. Okay, I love you guys too. Thanks for coming. New Orleans closing all bars for Mardi Gras. Someone saw some 5G Whiz references, huh? Interesting. Now, we are now banned from saying a certain letter of the alphabet in fear of having some kind of notification put underneath our videos. So in order to go around this algorithm to where now we can't even mention a letter of the alphabet, we're going to have to just use some different coding when you guys talk about that, okay? I think what they're doing too is they're going into the chats as well as the comment section. So let's not mention that letter of the alphabet anymore. I would replace it with the letter K, because the K and the other letter sound very similar. So we're going to see if we can have our first video without a notification under it when we're not even talking about that stuff by trying to go around the algorithms. It's kind of fun to go around the algorithms, isn't it? Yep, you're right, Tom. Tom nailed it. So one of you asked for my email. It's kcbrown1973@gmail.com. All right. There was a fan that ran onto the field with a Revelation scripture tattooed on his chest. Oh, wow. So I missed that. What was the scripture? Was it the one about Apollyon, Abaddon? I wonder. Yeah, thought crimes, right? The connection to Ray might have been a reference to Whitney Houston. Oh, was she the one that sang the anthem? That was back when I was patriotic, years and years ago, when Whitney Houston sang the anthem. That was probably one of the best anthems I'd ever heard. That was an amazing national anthem that she sang. Now I understand what that means, and of course, just makes me cringe when I hear the national anthem now. Oh, it was a streaker, huh? Okay. Let's see if this show gets the notification underneath it. Oh, the Weeknd's real name is Abel. There you go. The sacrifice. What was the first sacrifice of the Bible, as a matter of fact? Abel. Okay. Now, some of you had asked me to decode the fence around DC. So I'll look into that. I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm well rested. And so we'll get into that and have more shows later in the week. Okay. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Share this with everybody you know. I tried to not make too many assumptions about this decode, so this is something you can share with people so they can wake up. I mean, it's a miracle in itself that we were already talking about Flushing Meadows in the weeks leading up to this, and there was no way we could have known what the set was going to look like for the halftime show. So that alone should wake up some Christians' eyes who are still living in the right-left paradigm to help them understand what's going on. That has nothing to do with a bad Don or a Biden. They're both one and the same. It doesn't matter who you vote for and give your energy to. So this would be the kind of video that should go viral and you could share with a lot of people. I love each and every one of you. I'll be back on here tomorrow. Take care and be safe.